Hello and welcome to the Excuse Buster Show, where we break through what gets in your way of feeling how you want to feel and living the life you want to live. And if a lack of creativity is holding you back in some way, then you want to stay tuned, because my guest today is a massive champion of creative women. She shines this much needed spotlight on their story and their work through Mama Creatives, which is like a TED Talk for mums. It runs evening talks and masterclasses, plus has this wonderful online and in-person community. She is also an art educator and an art therapist, working with kids and teens who have got behavioral and emotional issues. She is a woman who has got these practices, these really practical things that you can do to help bring out your creativity and also bring out that thing that you can use, that tool that you can use to help you feel the way you want to feel. This is Anna Kellerman.
Wow. Hi, Lizzie.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Lovely to be here.
So a year ago, Anna and I ran a creative workshop together for perinatal anxiety, depression awareness week, which is the week that's going on as we're filming this now. And I was quite blown away by the practices and these tasks that we did, these creative processes that you took us all through, and the power of them, to use them to connect with yourself and also in a way to heal things, to move through things. It was very powerful. So we're going to get to those things today. But first of all, I want to delve into the things that get in our way of being creative. And if someone is talking to you and they find out what you do, you're, you know, the chief mama of creative mamas, and you're this amazing artist and art therapist, if they said to you, oh, well, I'm not creative, or I wish I was creative, what would you say to them?
I get that all the time. The main thing I say, I mean, there's so many reasons why people have padding around, why they don't feel creative. I'm going to be talking about people who I feel identify with being creative and might have lost their creativity or their creative spirit. And it's not for everybody, but if you identify with being creative, or you used to be creative and you want to get it back, I say to people something very simple to start with. I ask them, what used to bring you joy as a child? Because when we're children, and if you're a parent and you've seen children, they are very spontaneous and natural, and they gravitate to what they love. And as people, as we grow, we don't lose that interest. Life gets in the way, and it's probably it's educated out of us as we grow up. But when you're a child, it's just a spontaneous gravitation. And so I ask them what brings them joy, not what you want to be when you grow up. And generally, if you work through some steps, you can identify with that thing that you love. So when I was a child, I used to draw and paint, and art was my thing, and that's what I always go back to. And even though there were years where I left it, it's the thing that I loved, and it doesn't mean that it's gone away, but there are things that get in the way of that. So I think you have to go deep inside and go, okay, what did I used to enjoy doing? And it might take a while to get there. It could be something not that clear cut. It could be that you liked bringing people together, and maybe you need to be more entertaining and be more around people and get back into community and be around people if you're feeling isolated. It could be something not quite so obvious, but I think that's a good place to start.
There was something about when I got to know the Mama Creatives community when I first went to you guys, and I remember afterwards having this big realization. I was driving along the car and I was just going, oh, what do I want to do? And said to myself, I want to perform. I am a performer.
There you go.
And then I realized that in the years that I had been a mum, I had thought to myself, oh no, you can't do that anymore. You can't have that in your life. You can't be this sort of outgoing performing, get up on stage, get on TV. And I had this big aha moment going, why not?
Why not?
Why can't I be that as well? And so do you find that with other mums?
Yes. I think what happens is, I don't know whether it's this generation of parenting and mums, that there's this expectation that we need to be professional mothers, like we take it as a job, and instead of just being a bit more relaxed and letting the kids just be idle and letting the kids just be, they're overscheduled, they have to be doing something all the time, and the mum has to be seen to be doing something all the time. It's not true. Having a little bit of time out is when the creative moments come. I'm always saying to my daughter, I don't let her go on a screen, but I do let her watch TV. And if she's bored, I'm like, great, go and do something with that. And so she then has to go and she's got a whole lot of areas in the house where she can create, and she comes up with the most amazing things. And I don't try to fill in that time for her. And I think as parents, we try to live everything through our children these days, and I think it takes away the joy, and there's a lot of anxiety and pressure to make money, to be seen, to be doing things, social media as well. There's so many comparisons, and I think that puts a lot of pressure on us as parents. And I think what we need to do is stop looking at social media, stop comparing, and bring the joy back into life with your family, in yourself. And I think there's a lot of guilt with parenting, that we don't have the time, I've got to do it for my child, I'm not worthy, if I do that then I'm going to be taking time away from my child. But in fact it's the opposite. If you are doing something that is enjoyable, and it could be half an hour or 10 minutes, your child will be so proud of you, and you'll be modeling really positive behavior. So you can actually there's a lot of discourse around the being torn between creativity and motherhood, but in fact I see it as living in tandem. Chaos and mess is great. That's what brings that's where you can get so much rich inspiration for whatever creative project you're working on. And you can also bring your kids into what you're doing, and that's how they'll learn, and you can feed off each other. You can feed off that innocence and that pure genius of what children can create, and they can give to you. So rather than thinking I don't have any time, we'll actually work together, use that time and do things together, and bring that joy back into your family life, and forget the washing up and all the things and all the tasks that you should be doing, and just let go a little bit and be in the moment. And I think a lot of people can't do that. It's a very anxiety provoking society that we're living in at the moment, of always having to be on. And I think it's important to take some time out. Don't know if that answers the question.
It does. You did your thesis on anxiety disorders, children working with clay. What did you discover from that?
Yes, that was about using clay as an art therapy intervention with children with anxiety. What I learned from that is that clay is an incredible material because it has so many properties. So with clay you can add water to it, and it can be really messy and primal. But what it is, it's kinesthetic. It makes you move. So I had a lot of kids come to see me. You've got to be careful with clay if you're using it in a therapeutic environment, because if it does get messy and people have OCD and they don't like mess, it can trigger things for them. So you need to bring it out at the right time. But if you do bring it out at the right time and they relate to that material, it can be amazing. It can change your affect. It can change you from feeling flat and down and to waking you up, because it makes you move, because you have to move when you use it, and a lot of anxiety can come out in your hands, and that's why stress balls are very important. Right. You've got anxiety in your body, you can have it in your throat, you can have it in your stomach, you can have it in your heart, you can have it in your head with big headaches and explosions, you can have it in your feet, and you can have it in your hands. And so this is where sometimes all that energy is, and so people need to do something with that. So clay can be very good for that in terms of anxiety, and to be used for that in a very therapeutic way. The other thing about clay is, so it can be really wet and messy, but then it can also dry. And so then you can paint it, you can break it, you can smash it, you can put things inside it. There's lots of different things you can do with it. You can add water to it. And so there's this whole magical qualities just with this one material. And depending on the child's story and where they're at, they can go through those different processes. And within that, you can then reflect and help them gain insight. The thing about art therapy is you've got the client, the therapist, and then this third thing, the art materials, which is the projective material. So you've got three in that relationship, and you project. You can use metaphor a lot with children. So instead of just being straightforward and asking them, how are you feeling, a kid's not going to tell you that. But if you do it through the art materials, and they're creating a structure, for example, it could be a house or a factory. In my thesis, you can say, how's the factory feeling today? And I remember the boy I worked with in my thesis, he said, it's feeling grey and sad and lonely. And then you can kind of reflect that that's probably how he's feeling, and then you use the language they give to you, and then you can have a conversation, and then you can work with that. So clay is 3D as well. So you can, so many things that you can do with children. It's very powerful. So clay, if you're using it at home in a non-therapeutic environment, just for fun, you've got Play-Doh, you've got clay, it's incredible for your children. If your children are a little bit energetic and you want them to channel that energy, or they're anxious, get a block of clay, set it up in the home with a tablecloth, and it'll be amazing how engaged they will be. It can be, some of the children I've worked with they're almost like in a trance, because it's so primal and it's so visceral and it's so kinetic. I always recommend parents get clay if the child has been responding well to it. And that's something, as parents, they could also sit down and use that clay and just have some time with their children. It's a nice material to bond. And
that idea of sitting and stopping,
right,
not rushing,
being
just
in the
being
moment,
in the moment, either I guess on your own or with your kids if you've got some.
I think that's really important. I don't overschedule my daughter. She does one thing after school a week. I see a lot of the kids I see, they're very stressed. The parents are stressed, and then I look at their schedule. And they're doing something every day, and on the weekend. Some are doing 2 or 3 times after school a day. No wonder they're tired and falling apart and shouting. They're exhausted. I mean, I'm not saying everybody does that, but I think we need to step back and have some space in between. Life is busy already. Life is hectic, and technology and catching up, and we need some space to recharge. I'm very much about that. And in terms of creativity, sometimes if you're stuck, giving yourself some space to step back if you're feeling overwhelmed, it might seem counterintuitive, but actually it's really good to stop and recharge. And that's when you give your brain some rest, and you'll feel that you will be able to be more creative.
How would you define creativity?
Oh goodness. Well, the very simple, there's quite a few definitions, but the very simple one that I can think of now would be the genesis of an idea, and taking that concept or idea and adding action, and then creating something from that. So it could be, it doesn't have to be in your studio as an artist creating something on a piece of canvas. That's one idealized version or romantic version of what creativity is, the artist in the studio. Visual art is a big part of creativity, but there are many other ways. You could have someone who creates an incredible business. That's an idea that they made happen. You have to be creative to make decisions and to build that business. It could be the idea for a book. Maybe you start with a blog, but it's an idea, then you write that, and then you create the blog, or you write the book. You can have ideas, and they could be swimming around in your mind, but I think it's taking those ideas out and executing something from that, taking action and creating something from that idea that didn't exist before.
I mean, you only have to look at the Mama Creatives community to know that it's not, to be creative isn't just to being an artist.
No.
You've got people in there who are businesses, PR, all sorts of different
yes,
things.
pretty much everything. Photography, filmmakers, people who are lateral thinkers. Edward de Bono with the 6 Hats. I don't know if you know the 6 Hats series. You've got people who are who are philosophical. I find those people are very creative. They have an idea or a philosophy, and if they're able to articulate that idea into a theory or into a great conversation, the art of conversation, there's a creativity in that. That's a skill. So if you're able to demonstrate what's in your mind and bring that out into the world and create a reaction, there's creativity in that.
So what have you seen creativity do for people?
Wow, what have I seen? Well, there's 2 sides. You've got art as therapy, and then you've got art therapy, and then you've got the process, and then you've got the product. There's different aspects to creativity. The therapeutic side of creativity is that it can be quite healing. So you could be sitting there and just be drawing or doodling or working with your children, or just creating in a creative way using art materials or music or even dance, different mediums to express yourself and to release internal anxiety and externalize that into the world. There's a meditative therapeutic aspect to that, using creative processes. So that's very healing, and there's a lot of power in that. Creativity can also just add so much value to your life, because it shows that you're being curious. And the most important word for me in terms of creativity is curiosity. And I remember, I don't know if you've seen in the Actors Studio.
No.
The Actors Studio?
Yeah.
I remember he interviews mainly actors.
Yeah.
He's got a beard, I forgot his name.
Yeah.
He's interviewed everybody.
Yeah.
And I remember once I was watching, he was interviewing Al Pacino about his life. And he starts always with where they grew up, where they were born, and he goes through their life. And he asked Al Pacino about creativity and what's important to him in life. And he said, I'm a life engager. I stole it. Now, if you look around for my profile, I say that. I love that. He's just engaged in life, and that's where he gets his inspiration. If you're stuck at home on your own, you will get more anxious, and you'll get more isolated, and all those things, and you're stuck with your thoughts in your mind. It will increase a whole lot of mental illness in you, and it's possible that you'll lose your confidence. I think the thing that keeps us buoyant is connecting with community and making sure that we are engaged with the world, because we're social creatures. And so that's why Mama Creatives really works, is that we have this community and everyone's there for support. It's hard to get out, but once you're there, it's great. And so I think the most important thing with creativity is to be curious, and to use that curiosity in a way that moves you forward in some way. And as long as you're moving forward in some way, and you've got movement somewhere in your life, creativity can come in different ways. So other ways creativity, you could have a specific project, and that could be a film, or it could be collaborating with a whole range of creatives all doing their thing. And then you have this sense of incredible collaboration and achievement if you create something together. Every time I do an event, it's a creative success, because I have an idea, I ask that person to share their story, I help them with their story. Sometimes there's this transformation for them to have gone through the process, and then the people in the audience have a great time, and there's just an energy in the room, and there's a creative sort of vibe that emanates throughout the room. That in itself is creative. I have an idea and then I do it. The people in the community, they're the same. They have an idea, they create it, they bring it to the group, they meet other people, and then they collaborate on something completely different, and then there's another thing in the world that's come from that. It's just ongoing, it's never ending. The other thing with creativity is that you've got process versus product. Now, as an art therapist, we're all about the process. It's very important that you don't fixate on the product, because that will create anxiety and perfection, and that's not what we want. So obviously, if you're doing a project, you're getting paid for it, there's a product that you're working on, but to get there is a process. And I think we need to remember that the process is also very important. That process can change, and the product might be different to what you envisioned. So you've got to be in that process and not be fixated on the product. When people come to me, they say, I can't draw, and I'm like, this is not about drawing, it's about how you express yourself with the art materials.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And so they're like, I can't draw. So, this is an artwork, and obviously there's a skill behind that, but we're not expecting people to have this end product. You have to enjoy, and you have to be in the moment and let yourself externalize whatever it is that you want to share. So there's different aspects to it. You've got people who identify as professional creatives in what they do, but it's not easy for them to get to their end result. They're agonized. That process can be agony until they get to that finished product. They might have a deadline. For example, they might have a gallery, or they have a show coming up. It's not a walk in the park. You have to constantly be problem solving as well. Creativity takes work. Life takes work. It takes effort. And if you put in the effort and you do a little bit, you will have a body of work. So creativity takes effort. It's not all waking up and having this genius moment. That's 1%. It's perspiration, it's effort, it's constantly challenging yourself, and finding different solutions, collaborating with others, listening to others, engaging in the world, finding new perspectives. So I don't think you can rest on your laurels. I like creativity because it's buoyant. And a lot of people can't sit with uncertainty. For me, it's really important to be okay with that. And that gives you the freedom. There's a liberation to that level of uncertainty and being okay with the process and believing in that you will get there, not knowing what there sometimes is. That's also, there's beauty in that. I think the problem is a lot of people want to know, they want to be in control, and they can't sit with uncertainty, and so they let go of a lot of things. As parents and as people in the world today, everything has to have an answer, and we need to know exactly what's going on. Everything's monitored. And I think that is against human nature sometimes, that we need to have some space and breath in between.
And taking that focus away from the result. I love what you said about that, you know, and going through this process. So do you want to take us through some of the processes and the tips, the things that you wanted to share?
Sure. Okay, so I have quite a few. I think there's two parts to unblocking. If you have a creative block, there's two parts to it. One could be, what am I going to do today? I've got this brief, I've got to get it out, I've got a couple of days, I've got to get through it, I'm having a block. So there's that sort of practical stuff you can do now. And then there's the concept of if you are really blocked and there's this entrenched low self-worth, that you're not worthy of taking the time to prioritize creativity in your life. That happens a lot with the women in the community. They have children, they work, they have a family, and life gets in the way, and they deprioritize and devalue creativity when it was the thing that gave them joy. So the thing that is your highest value doesn't even make it on the list. And what happens is, over time, if that thing that's so important to you isn't up here, it will follow you, and you will get to a certain age where you will be resentful. Somehow your life will blow up in your face. So rather than that happening, reclaim that and find a way to bring it back in. I remember watching a show about the brain on SBS a long time ago, and this comes from neuroscience, and basically do some menial work like washing up. What happens is it relaxes the prefrontal cortex, and this is when this part is active and we're very focused, it doesn't give us any space to be creative. When that is less active and we're using less mental power, that's when we're more able to be creative. But if that's being used, there's no freedom for it to work. So you need to be not too passive and not too active, and it's in those menial tasks is when we get our most creative inspiration. And I'm probably one of the only people in the eastern suburbs who doesn't have a dishwasher. So I actually wash up my dishes, and it's when I get my most creative thoughts. I'm washing up, I'm doing something, and then I look out the window and I get my great ideas. I get names for things, and I get my ideas. My mind is resting, but it's not too passive. I think it's really important to bring back fun. I don't know where fun and joy is gone. I think it's gone out of a lot of people's lives. We're so focused on getting a career and being really good parents and being busy. It's like, that's not fun. So Mama Creatives is all about come and have a good time. Allow yourself a night out. Don't be guilty. And so bring back fun. Turn on the music. Change it up. Put some great artwork on the wall that's going to give you inspiration. Change your environment if you're feeling stuck and blocked. Another thing I did when I was at art school many years ago, we did something called a dream diary. And I loved that. And so we had to train our brains to wake up and write our dreams as soon as we woke up. And when I was at uni, I used to have 2 jobs, and I used to just fall asleep on the pillow, and I was so dead asleep. I couldn't remember anything. And I'd said to my lecturer, I don't have any dreams, I'm too tired when I put my head on the pillow. But I had to train myself, and so I had paper and pen next to my pillow, and as soon as I woke up, I wrote down whatever was in my mind. And it's a great way to get ideas. Because dreams can be crazy. And it can also connect with your unconscious. So what you're doing is you're consciously connecting with your unconscious, and who knows where that will land, but it's a nice intersection. So if things get a little bit hard, sometimes that discomfort is telling you something. Get out of your comfort zone, challenge yourself, be expansive. Don't go in and limit yourself. Go with it and change things up. So go to talks that you wouldn't usually go to performances that you wouldn't go to, and you'll be surprised who's in the audience, and you'll be surprised how you would react to something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone. I always say to people, when you go out, as long as you meet someone new or you learn one new thing, how good is that? I think people say, I can't do that, because they're looking at the product and they're like, I used to do all this stuff, and they're thinking they've got to do all that again. It's like, you're not who you were when you were 25 or pre-children. Start 5 minutes, 10 minutes a week. And over time, if you give yourself 6 months and you did half an hour a week, that's a lot of hours. You will have your project finished. And that's putting no pressure on your life. And what you'll find is, if you start 10 or 20 minutes a week, that will become 10, 20 minutes a day. And you'll find your groove. In terms of practicalities, make it easy for yourself. So as a mother, as an art therapist, from a very young age, I've always had an art station set up for my daughter. I've changed it as she's grown, but I've never made art materials difficult for her to access. So she can help herself. If it was too hard to open the drawer, if it was too hard to access, she wouldn't do it. And now she can, for over the years, she's 9 now, but for many, many, many years, she's been able to go and entertain herself and create, because the art materials are abundant and they're welcoming and they're easy to access. Do it for yourself. If you're an artist, have your stuff out. Just find a corner and be okay with the mess. I don't think it's messy. I kind of like art materials, but find a place and have it out, because there's a barrier. It's like, oh my God, I've got to get it all out. You don't need a studio. You literally could a corner of a desk somewhere and have it out, ready to go. Be guided by your children. If you're stuck, just let them lead the way, because they are really creative if you let them have that freedom. They're so imaginative, and they'll find things to do because they want to spend time with you. They're like, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And so make time to be with your kids, and that's time where you can then energize yourself and create with them.
And you have got these great little things that you can do, like these moments. I remember when we were on the phone, when we were planning our creative workshop together, and you did one about where you discover your colour.
Oh, the line, shape and colour.
Yeah.
Do you like that?
Can you share it with us?
Well, this is just something that I do sometimes as an icebreaker in workshops. So I got everybody to not describe themselves as their name, age, and where they lived, but more about who they are as a person. So I got them to describe themselves as a line, shape, or colour. And from that, everybody shared such a deep part of themselves. So we knew who was in the room, not a label or a description, but really who was in the room, why that colour was important to them. So for example, what I do is, and surprisingly my colour's red. So what I usually do is I do a scribble as my line, because I don't see myself as just linear. I see myself as complex and layered, so it's all different shapes. The shape is amoebic, so it's adaptable and flexible. And my colour is red because I see that as passionate life force. It's our lifeblood, and there's a lot of energy to red. So for me, that's sort of how I describe myself. And from that, you can learn a lot about me than just my name. What's your colour?
Yeah.
What was your colour?
Yellow. And you can learn a lot about yourself as well. And I think it's definitely a really great exercise to try at home, and just to have the colours out and do your line, your shape, and your colour. And if there was another one that you would share that someone could do at home, like to just, you talked about clay, but if if we didn't have clay, like what's another great thing that you could sit down on your own or with kids and do?
There's something called the Zentangle, which I learnt from Kathy Macchiotti, who's one of the most famous art therapists in the world. She works with the Pentagon in America, and she's worked a lot with children from trauma, which is what I work with. And she did this great exercise. So you can, with your kids, you can get some paper. You have to do it for 15 minutes with some music, because that actually changes your brain. And actually, 15 minutes is the time that your brain can actually relax, and you can change your state. So if you're anxious, if you give yourself 15 minutes doing this exercise with music, your state will change. So what you can do is get a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper, a larger piece of paper than this, just do some lines across it like that. So you just want to create some type of marks on the paper. Then you can trace around your hand, and you get your kids to trace around their hands. You can do 1 or 2. This is a small piece of paper. So you can see how the lines are cutting across that hand. And what you want is to create different sections. And then within those sections, you can start doodling. Different colours, get out textures, it's nice and controlled. And you could do different lines and shapes, and you just doodle. So basically you're doodling to the music, and imagine that you've got different colours there, and your big piece of paper, your child could be doing it here and on their hand. And that is very meditative, and it's absolutely fantastic. Maybe we could put a link to the Zentangle.
Yeah, we will. We'll do all the links.
And that is a beautiful bonding thing to do with your children, with your family, or yourself, or a friend. And sometimes when I do it in therapy, sometimes I do it at the end of working with the mother-child sometimes. And what I've noticed was really beautiful is that it was about getting them to be more bonded. And by the end of the times that I'd had with them, they had done their hands overlapping, which is a really beautiful way to show that they were back and bonded.
What a wealth of knowledge you have shared with us, Miss Kellerman.
You're just like, wah! Rave, rave, rave.
Oh no, it's brilliant.
I could talk for hours. I mean, I've tried to just keep it, but I'm not sure.
It was wonderful. And also those little ideas of, you know, the clay, the actually sitting there either on your own or with your family and getting creative in some kind of way. You can see the benefits of that, being able to bring out in a way that joy, that inner child inside of you, and that stopping, and what that does to our levels of anxiety and stress. It definitely feels like a piece of the pie. We've got the sleep, we've got the exercise, we've got the food. It just feels like this piece of the pie would be so great if we could include that in some little moments in our week.
Yes, because we're so anxious, and we're so attached to screens, which is very passive, but it's electricity coming at us. This is you using your hand and your eyes and your body, and you're creating something from nothing. And it can also be very unconscious. You don't even know what you're going to be doing, but you just get to this state of relaxation or state of alertness that you can't get by just watching a screen. It's not about occupying yourself. It's about choosing to spend your time in a way where it's actually adding value, and it's really therapeutic. Or you're creating something that you're proud of. So it's about allowing that back. I mean, in the olden days, way with Jane Austen, they used to sit around and play the piano and learn to. They all did activities at night, didn't they?
That's what we do in our household now with the scrunchies.
Right, the scrunchies, and my friend does knitting or sewing.
I
mean, I think we've gone too far the other way. That we're not actually doing anything, you know. It's too much of a consumer society. It's like, why not create what you want instead of just having this fast consumer? Slow down and take the time to slow your brain and connect your brain to your hands, to your children, to yourself. It's a very simple philosophy, but we're losing it a little bit. But when you hang out with creative people, which is kind of normal for me, and all the people who come to my community, they just love it. It's just normal. But a lot of people don't allow it or bring it into their life because life takes over. And it's the one thing that doesn't seem important because it doesn't bring money. But health is wealth, and having joy is way more important than killing yourself. So, you know, it's about where you want to sacrifice and compromise. And I'm not saying don't not work and don't make money, but just give yourself a little bit of that outlet. And a lot of people in their 40s and 50s, they go back to creative pursuits. Most women of this age group have restarted. They go to painting classes, and they start up their art or their creative pursuit again at this stage of life, because they realize that they feel empty without having some type of meaningful outlet. And so why wait till you're 80?
So true.
Why wait till there's some catastrophe for you to find the meaning and value in the small things in life? Creativity is massive, and they bring it into the corporate world. They bring it into every aspect of society. Because what are we without our imagination? I mean, Sir Ken Robinson talks about it brilliantly in his TED Talk. We need it. We are born, this is how we're different to animals. We are born with this opportunity to create from nothing. And when we bury that, over the years, you can't escape from it. It will find you. It'll find you, and when it finds you, allow it You can find room for it. It's really a beautiful, amazing thing to have in life. And Matisse said creativity takes courage. It's not easy. It takes effort. It takes effort to allow creativity, but it's worth it. But everything takes effort.
Yeah, it sure does. Everything worthwhile. And that's why I think it's so wonderful what you're doing with the Mama Creatives community. And if you're watching or listening to this and there's there might be something and you go, oh, I think this is what I need, then make sure that you check it out and come on.
Yes.
If you're in Sydney, come to the events or online. Many ways that you can connect with the community. So yes, and try out one of the practices that Anna has talked about, or one of those practical tips, and then we would love to hear what it is that you did or what it is that you are planning to do. What's resonated from this episode, so many things that Anna has said, and I say that in a good way. There's so many to choose from, so you've really got no excuses. There's going to be something in there that you think to yourself, yeah, I can bust the excuse. I can actually do that. What is it? And let us know. So in the comments, or send us a message, however you want to communicate with us, so that you've got a bit of that accountability as well. And and we will hold you to that, and love to hear how that all goes for you. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out on any of the future episodes of the Excuse Buster show. And there you go. We have busted the excuse of, I'm not creative. I can't be creative. I don't have time to be creative. I don't really need to be creative. That's not really who I am. I think we can all benefit for a bit more creativity in our lives. That's right. Anna, thank you very, very much.
And isn't she amazing? I love this woman.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.